Hello everybody and welcome to TFG Radio, a video battle report and learning game on Dropfleet Commander by Hawk Wargames, written by Andy Chambers. That's right, the Andy Chambers of Battlefleet Gothic and of course 40K for many years. So today, Danny, that's the guy behind the camera, and Adam, everyone's favorite, we're going to play the actual two-player starter box game exactly as it comes out from the company and walk you through a lot of it so you get a sense of how the game's played and whether you might be interested in picking it up. So the battle box comes with two different starter armies. These are actually the exact same starter armies that you can pick up separately, individually on their own. So first off, we have the kind of enemies, the antagonists of the world overall. This is the Scourge, and so the Scourge are a fast, fragile kind of glass cannon kind of army. And as you can see, the game includes a nice little printout that has a picture of the ships as well as all of their stats. And to make the game running easier, on the back is actually some rules, like the general kind of, this is all the different charts that Andy Chambers loves. So here we've got in this game, you get one heavy cruiser, that's the Shenlong right there. You get a standard cruiser, the Ifrit, and then another standard cruiser, the Wyvern. Sorry, I'm American, I don't say Wyvern. You get actually two of these little guys, the Harpies, which are your smaller frigates, and then two Gargoyles, which is that last guy right there, who is a strike craft, which is about landing troops, and that's how you actually play the game and win the scenario. So you can see this map. The maps they include in the two-player starter box actually aren't big enough for a proper 4x4. So for the purpose of the game, we're actually going to be using the green felt is going to, in the back, is going to count for our space. But here we have kind of the general heroes of the game, the UCM, that's the United Colonies of Mankind. And they've got, their heavy cruiser is the Moscow right there, which if you can see has just a bunch of guns on it. We've got the Berlin standard cruiser with a burn-through laser, which is pretty fun. We've got the Seattle. That is what's important about this this cruiser is it's a carrier, which means it'll launch little ships like Battlestar Galactica style. And then it's got its own two of its little frigates, the Toulons, and then two strike craft, again, very important for this game, and these are the New Orleans. So, those are our armies. It's going to be a map we're going to set up in a second. The scenario is the basic out-of-the-box called Expeditionary Raid, which is actually just a kind of scaled-down version of one of the missions. There's 8 missions in the book. This is kind of the most basic. You see here there are 3 little what are called clusters. This is where essentially objectives are. Objectives aren't just spread out all over the map. They're actually concentrated in clusters. And then each of those little dots represents a sector. That's essentially a city that we're fighting over. Over here you can see fine. That's a fine debris field, so a bunch of space junk. That's very dangerous to small craft, not too dangerous to big craft. Dense debris, which is very dangerous to big craft, actually not very damaging to very small craft like fighters. And they also are essentially the cover and terrain in the game. So, with all of that, the basic premise is pretty simple. We have 6 turns to play. At the end of turn 4 and the end of turn 6, which is the last game turn, we score our victory points. Whoever has the most victory points wins. In the case of a tie, you go to straight kill points. Who did the most damage? And if that's a tie, then I guess we just go soccer rules and everyone walks home a loser. So that's the game. We're going to get it properly set up, and as this is a learning game for everyone involved, we'll probably stop a lot, talk about what we're doing, what the rules are, the mechanics, etc., etc. So see you guys in a bit. Hey guys, so what we have here is we're going to do some basic overview of the game rules, mechanics, so what we're doing doesn't look too strange. So the first thing we're going to do is how unit activation works. So in Dropfleet Commander, there are essentially what are called battle groups, which are multiple ships together, or sometimes alone, and then there are groups or squadrons, which is when you have ships working very closely together in concert. So every army has these little nicely printed, in the starter box, these very nicely printed cards that are your battle group cards. So what you do is, you use these to dictate your order each turn. At the beginning of each turn, you take your deck, however many battle groups you have, and you decide in what order do you want your units to start to activate, and it's alternating order, so one battle group goes, an opponent's battle group goes, etc., etc. You'll see that there are what are called strategy ratings. Strategy ratings show essentially how nimble these battle groups are. The higher, the worse. So, for example, if my Scourge Vanguard battle group, which has a strategy rating of 12 because it has a Shenlong heavy cruiser, which counts as 10, and then 2 Gargoyle strike carriers, which count as 1 each. If I revealed that card to Adam, because this is all done in secret, as my first activation, and he deployed one of his squads that had 7 or 5, well, guess what? Adam gets to choose who activates first. In the beginning, it's generally a good idea to let your opponent activate first so you can react. But pretty much from turn 2 on, you want to be going first because you want to be hitting first. So this is one level of the game that's really a bluff mechanic, where you're trying to anticipate how your opponent is going to deploy his forces, and obviously try to trick your opponent into thinking you're making plays you're not, so you can react and capitalize maybe on their misplacement. So here's an example of all the rules. This is on the back, actually, of all of the stat printouts you get with any starter box. And so it has the damage charts when a ship is crippled, meaning it is now at half or less hull points lost. You roll to see which chart you end up on, so subsystems, hull, core systems, and then you roll again a D3 on what actually is happening to you. When you blow up, you roll on this chart to see what happens, because you can kill your friends by blowing up.
Yes.
There's the standard orders. This is essentially every battle group has to follow the same order. Now, everyone can do what is called standard orders regardless, which is you're allowed a 45-degree turn, you're allowed to fire up to 1 weapon, and any weapons classified as point or as close action also get to fire. Thrust, your movement, you have to move half to full your thrust value. And do you receive a spike? In this case, you remove a minor spike. Spikes are very important because the way this game works out in terms of shooting is ships have a scan and signature. All weapons are considered infinite range, meaning if you can see someone, you can shoot them. How you see them is adding 2 values together, scan and signature. So scan, signature. So this ship, the Shenlong, has a scan of 6, meaning we'll always be able to see anyone, anywhere within 6 of it. But if I'm targeting, let's say, an identical ship, or actually we'll go with, if I'm targeting the Moscow here, which has a signature of 6, my scan 6 plus their signature of 6 equals 12. That's how far away I can be at max to target them and shoot. There are 2 spikes in the game, major and minor. A minor spike on a ship, this essentially shows its power operating above normal capacity, adds 6 inches to your signature. A major spike adds 12, so if, let's say Adam's Moscow had a major spike on it, its signature would be 6 plus the major spike of 18, meaning my Shenlong can now see it and target it 24 inches away, assuming no penalties to scan due to terrain. So weapons are kind of so continue with that. Thrust, that's how fast something goes. Hull, how many hit points. Armor, what's armor save? 4+, standard kind of 40k style. PD is point defense. If you've ever seen the more recent Battlestar Galactica with all of the guns shooting and blowing up missiles, that's what point defense looks like. So it protects against fighters, bombers, and certain other weapons. Group, how many can be in a squad essentially? 1. And then tonnage, heavy, meaning it counts for 10 strategy points and 10 points for controlling what are called critical sector or critical locations, critical clusters. Special rules, like my Shenlong has the rule stealth and partial cloak, which we'll get into when relevant. And then of course the weapons. So you'll notice again, no range. Lock, that's what you need to hit. So his weapons need a 3+ across the board. Attack, how many dice do I get? 2 each. Damage. That means every hit equals 2 armor saves. Essentially, each hit can do up to 2 damage. And then arc. Yes, there is arc and line of sight matter in this game, so A ship's arc, F is front, so that's anything in its front 45 degrees. Front and side, or F and S means front and side, with that little L means left, so I can target things on my left side. Front, side, right means I can target things on my front, right side. And then finally, front, side, rear, obviously I can target myself 360. And then of course other rules, Scald, a very common Scourge rule, which essentially is his armor save gets 1 less as long as I'm targeting him within scan range. So Scourge want to get up close and personal. So that's kind of a basic overview of the rules. The map is set up. You'll see that's a sector, and there are 4, or I mean that's a cluster, and there are 4 sectors in this cluster. Yes, I know, it is confusing because they like boxes inside of boxes in this game. But once you get the hang of it, it actually makes sense. So we're going to start the first turn, get things going, and we'll start walking you through some basic sequences like shooting, orders, etc. once we get there. Okay guys, this is the very first turn of the game, so we start our activation order, which is where we see we have our decks. This is our activation decks. They're blind to the opponent, so we're going to flip. Whoever has the lowest strategy rating gets to choose to go to activate first or second. So 12. I have a 7, so my Scourge battle for I get to choose. I'm going to make Adam go first and deploy his units first. Alright guys, here's the very first activation. We've got right here the Moscow and the 2 strike carriers, the New Orleans. They're coming on the very edge here. They did standard orders and they stayed in what's called high orbit, and all this is marked on the bases. And there kind of looks like Adam's threatening to come over to this side sector at some point.
Just mention the rule for the strike.
Yeah, so the strike carriers, what's interesting about them, you'll notice they're actually pretty far away from each other, and that's completely okay. They have a special rule called open, which means they do not need to stay within 3 inches of each other, nor do they need to stay within 12 inches of anyone else in their battle group. They are essentially completely free to do whatever they want, which is pretty common. Over here we can see my Scourge have come in, my 2 small frigates. They do not have the open rule, so you can see that they're close together. You'll also, if we get real close on that base, you'll see that they changed orbital layers. There are 3 layers in combat. There's high orbit, which is high above the planet. There's low orbit, which is much closer, a little dangerous. And then there's atmosphere. Atmosphere, very few vehicles can go into. The larger ships instantly die the moment they go into atmosphere. So if their engines fail, if they're in low orbit and drop down, they just blow up. These guys are capable of actually going atmospheric, which means they can go in and maybe try and hunt down Adam's little strike carriers. Also, there is a penalty for shooting between layers. Since I'm on low orbit, if he has someone on high orbit capable of shooting me, he suffers -1 to his lock. The other little color there you'll see is blue. That means not only do I have no spikes on these ships, they're in silent running, which means their signature now costs 0. Of course, they can only move, turn, but cannot shoot during this, so it is kind of a safe way for me to slowly scurry up the board and avoid any long-range shots. My Ifrit did the exact same thing. He moved on. He dropped an orbital layer just to kind of protect himself a little bit in case something goes horribly wrong, and he set to silent running to get around his little fin is over there. So that was our very first activation, and we're getting ready to activate our next battle groups. Okay guys, here's activation number 2. We flip our cards, and what do we got? A 7 versus my 5 again.
Damn, dude.
I'm gonna make Adam go first again.
Alright. 7 is...
Sucker. Alright guys, here is the next set of activations. Adam's group came on, so this is, we've got his Berlin here with the burn-through laser, and then 2 Toulons who came on. You can see again, the Toulons have to stay near each other because they do not have the open rule. He did standard order, so nothing special. If we look over here though on the board, my little wyvern, my little guy, he has come up on his own. He actually has a spike on him. That's what that yellow means. He has a minor spike because he hauled ass and went a full 15 and went 15 inches instead of 10 to do, and got the order maximum thrust. So he's a little more vulnerable, but I'm in a lot better and a lot farther ahead position. And especially this guy, since he is very good at close action, he needs to get into the fight and needs to get close to really be able to do damage. So, star wipe. All right, guys. John, edit this seamlessly in with the last segment.
Seamlessly.
So the
Star wipe.
right, star wipe. Anyway, so guys, the thing about this little spike is my Wyvern has a signature of 8 standard. He's kind of a bigger ship than the UCM. With this minor spike, he adds 6 to that, so his signature is actually 14. So with Adam's kind of base scan of 6, it means that someone can target him up to 20 inches away. So this is a risk. I am letting someone maybe get a shot off on him early, although I'm hoping that that anyone who comes on this side of the table will have to shoot through these terrain fields. Might give him some cover. If he can survive to the next turn, I can hide him a little bit and wait for him to pounce. Alright guys, so here's our last activation for the turn. It's pretty obvious what it's going to be. My Vanguard versus his line. So
Finally.
Adam finally wins.
And I'm going to go first.
Adam's going to go first. Hey, alright, so here we've got Adam's lone fleet carrier. Right there, comes on. Unfortunately, no one is within range for him to launch his bombers to do a little bit of damage. So thankfully I stayed back far enough to not get hit first turn, although that's not going to be the case next turn. My heavy group came in, and you can see I got one little gargoyle right here who's making a beeline there. He also has the open rule, so that's why he's far away from his friend over here, who is going to be closer to the center, backed up by my Shenlong. Now my Shenlong, again, is also in silent running, but what's important about him is he has a special rule called stealth, meaning that he gets, when silent running, which normally forbids turning or firing, he gets to fire one weapon and his close action weapons while in silent running mode. So he's hopefully going to sneak on up to the center of the board and blow the hell out of something. We'll see. Since there's no launch assets and there's nothing to do in that part of the game, we're just going to skip it. And also now we are going to go to turn-by-turn summaries, as that was kind of the basic order. We'll probably stop to do the first damage rolls and things like that as well, but we're going to be picking up the pace a bit, so this battle report isn't an hour and a half long. Hey guys, so we actually have the first dice rolls in terms of damage coming on. So what happened is my Ifrit and my 2 little harpies here are going to try and do some damage to Adam's strike carrier right there. So what happened was my Ifrit here has a major spike, that's the red, because he used the order active scan, which lets me pick a ship and give it a minor spike. Basically it opens up the range on an enemy ship, gives me a chance to hit first. So you can see that little New Orleans has a yellow, so he has a minor spike. This is going to let my gargoyles actually get a shot off on him. So each gargoyle is armed with Oculus beams, which is kind of the standard weapon of the Scourge. So they get 2 dice because they only get 1 shot each, but each shot is 2 damage, so if I hit both of them, I could do up to 4 damage. So we're going to see how this goes. They have a lock of 3, so they need 3s to hit, but also importantly, a 5 or a 6 is a critical hit. Yes, this game has crits. The way it works is, if you roll 2 or higher than your lock value, you have critted, which ignores armor saves. So let's see some 5s and 6s, baby. Oh, look at that.
Oh my god.
So that is 4 damage with no armor save allowed.
He only has 4 hull points.
He only has 4 hull points, so he dies. And now we roll on the catastrophic damage table, which is right here. So 1, 2, 3, not that big of a deal. 4, 5, 6, big. And you'll notice there is a 7. Only ships with hull 10 or more get to blow up 7, but it's pretty bad. So let's see what happens to Adam. It's a 4, which is shredded. Ship is torn apart, blah, blah, blah. All other ships within explosion range suffer 1 point of hull damage with armor saves. So the explosion range is probably nothing because little ships only roll D3. So I don't think anyone else is within 3 inches because you don't measure base to base in this game. You measure stem to stem. Yeah. So it's pretty pointless. No one's close enough. He's just dead. What's key about this is I've killed one of his strike carriers before it can even land troops, which means I have a big advantage in the scenario now. It's a lot easier for me to win the mission because I can drop off twice as many troops as he can. So we'll see if this plays out or if I lose my Ifrit for doing that. There we go. Hey guys, so here we are actually in what's called the roundup phase, which is essentially where cool things happen. So, you'll see here my poor little Ifrit took 4 points of damage just from the kind of basic shooting from the Seattle Fleet Carrier because Adam rolled 5, 5, 6, so that's 3 crits, and then a regular hit, which I did not save because Scourge only have a 4+ armor. If we see over here, like at this one, my Gargoyle dropped into atmosphere. That's what that white means. So he's now actually pretty much like flying around the city, and he dropped off a tank, which there are 3 kinds of ground assets. There are defense batteries, armor, and infantry. These are what you use to hold the sectors. Armor is very good at killing off infantry out of sectors. Infantry are very good at surviving against orbital bombardment from ships, and defense weapons are very good at blowing up bulk landers. These are special kinds of ships that deploy not just 1 infantry, they deploy up to 3 infantry or 1 defense battery. So we don't have any in this game, so it really doesn't matter. The far end over there, you can see I also deployed infantry. Since that far cluster I feel is pretty safe from Adam's lone strike carrier, I don't have to worry about fighting against armor, but I do want something that could survive orbital bombardments if Adam decides to go that route. And of course, something really cool that's a very fun part of this game, let me control the camera better here, is right here. Adam's Seattle launched a squadron of bombers to seek bloody vengeance for the New Orleans that bravely went down with many lives on board. So fleet carriers have fighters and bombers. Bombers attack enemy ships and are very much about going on bombing runs. Fighters actually protect ships from bombers and other close action weapons. So we're going to see Adam live here try and do some damage. The really nice thing about launch assets like this, namely fighters and bombers, is that they can target things that are not within scan range, but are within a general aura radius. So in UCM's case, that's 12 inches for an immediate effect or 24 inches for a delayed effect. That's actually a pretty good chunk of the board on a 4x4. So here we go. Adam, using the UMC fighters, bombers. Each bomber has how many attacks?
2.
Has 2 attacks, so I'm going to be facing 6 attacks here. Let's take a look.
3+.
So they have a lock of 3, which means 3's hit and 5's and 6 crit.
3.
Yep, so go ahead. Oh, okay. Well, F me in the gullet.
Do 1 save.
Yeah, so this is not saves because this is technically what's called close action. So again, that's all of these little defense batteries happen. I basically have 2 layers of defense. My Gargoyle has a point defense of 4, meaning I get 4 dice to try and mitigate some of this damage. Now the thing is though, point defense only ever succeeds on a 5 or a 6. And it takes me 2 successes to cancel a crit.
Okay.
So I really am probably going to die here, but we just should roll it anyway just to see. So I've got 1 success, so I take away the armor save, and I still take 5 damage, which is still enough to blow the shit out of me. So what happens to my little frigate? How big or what kind of explosion do we got? A 5, of course, explosion. Basically 2 damage, which I can take saves. Let's see if I'm close enough to hurt my friend. 2 inches. No, I'm outside because I'm in just barely 3 inches coherency, I hope. Yep, stem to stem, motherfuckers. It's important. So there you go. You can see actually the power of launch assets. And in the game, there is a limit at 999 points or lower, which is called a skirmish. You are only allowed 10 maximum. In a clash, which is 1,500 points and below, or less than 2,000 points, you are allowed 15, and at over 2,000 points, you are allowed 20. But it's very clear that they try to limit these as best they can. So you can see that blood has now been shed in this game.
Yeah.
We're both down a frigate. I've got a cruiser that's 1 point away from being crippled, and being crippled really sucks in this game. A lot of things don't really matter once they've been crippled and die on their own very quickly. So we'll see if I can kind of press my advantage in terms of the scenario, because I'm landing assets now and taking control. So we'll see. Also an interesting note, just because it matters for power gamers out there, or anyone who is interested in how the deeper tech of the game mechanics, launch assets follow a very specific order. Bombers and fighters are announced first, but they take effect last. Ground assets, so landing troops and things like that, are declared later in the sequence, yet activate immediately. So there's no real way to counter them. While with bombers, fighters, and eventually torpedoes, which are pretty cool, only on big badass ships, those are the slowest and last things to take effect. In fact, no matter what, they can never take effect on the turn they're launched because they're that powerful, and they will kill many ships outright, and they will cripple most even heavy cruisers with everyone outside of the PHR. We'll get into that later. So there you go. That's turn 2. The Revenge. Hey guys, so in Adam's revenge and retaliation to protect his last strike cruiser, he actually had his Seattle go first, and what's critical here is Seattle drops down a layer, lines up his shot just barely in range of my gargoyle, and proceeds to do 2 crits and 2 hits. I only save 1 because they have a very crappy armor save, so I've taken 3 damage, and that dice right there, which means I'm crippled because they only have 4 hull points, so you only have to take 2. So I rolled a 5, so on the chart, that's core systems. Every one of these results will kill me. So now it's just the question of
how bad you die.
How bad I die. Oh, the max. So reactor overload. The ship suffers 3 additional hull points and another roll on the crippled damage table. I only have 1 left, so it doesn't matter. And no one's close enough for me to blow up to hurt them.
Hey, guess
so,
what? Fuck you.
So say that one more time, Adam, to the camera.
Oh, hey, guess what? Fuck you.
Exactly. Exactly, sir. And Starlight. All right, guys, so here the game is starting to get a little more chippy, right? A little more intense as we...
Chippy, as we sling insults to each other.
Exactly.
Fuck you, man.
Shoving, little face mask action. So what I have is my Ifrit, who's pretty hurt and near crippled. He decided to kind of go on to a death run here. So he's getting as close as he can to the Seattle. And what he's going to do is he's actually going to use his burn-through laser. So this is something incredibly important. This is one of the cool mechanics, weapons of the game. Pretty much everyone has one, a version of this, except I don't think the Shaltari do. But, you know, the UCM, the Scourge, and the PHR have these weapons called burn through. So what it is they're front narrow, that's this little mark here, so I couldn't actually go weapons free because I would not have been able to turn and line up my shot. So I had to do a standard order, which dropped me down to a minor spike rather than a major, and I get to shoot 1 weapon plus my close action, which hopefully is enough to do some real damage here. But my burn through, what's special about it is I get 4 shots. Needing 4s to hit. Every hit, I get to shoot again, up to a maximum of 8. So it is very possible for me to just suddenly do 8 damage here. The trick, though, is with them is if I crit, every subsequent hit after that crit is a critical, which means if I roll 1-6, I'm instantly anything else I roll after that is going to become a crit. So let's see how it goes, and let's see if I can do some real damage. Our first game, if you've been reading tfgradio.com, which you should be, Adam's PHR just reaped a bloody toll with his.
They hit on 3s.
Yeah, they hit on 4s. Okay. So it's a little harder here. Only 6 crit. Let's come on! 2 crits and a hit. So there's 1 hit already, 2 crits. So I've got 3 hits, 2 of them crits. So we'll just do it like this. So we got 2 here, 1 here. I get 3 more dice.
Right.
Try again on 4s. So only 1 more hit, but it's still a crit. Get 1 more dice. Still another hit, also a crit. 1 more dice. Still a hit, still a crit. I'm running out of goddamn dice.
2, 4, 6.
So I still have
2 more. 2 more rolls.
Up to 2 more. Miss. All right. So I've just done 5 damage and 1 armor save to the Seattle, and hold on, there's more. Because I'm Scourge, I have the rule Scald, which means if I'm within scan range, which for them is 6, your armor save is 1 less. So now the Seattle, which used to have a mighty 3 plus Space Marine, is now a Stormtrooper on a 4. So Adam, go for it.
No.
Oh, so I just did, what is that?
6.
6 damage in 1 volley. But I'm not even done, because now I get my close action weapons. So the Scourge are armed with what's called the Plasma Storm. That's their basic close action weapon. So it's D6 plus 2 attacks. Let's see how many I get. You see that 6 again. Get on it. 3.
3. So
all
5.
Right. So I get 5 attacks. These hit on a 3+, which means I crit on 5s and 6s. So I got 3 crits and 1 hit. So now Adam gets to roll his point defense on his Seattle. So these are basically, I just shot a bunch of plasma at him, and now his little missiles and laser bays get a chance to deflect them before his armor.
D6 plus 1.
No, your point defense.
Oh, point defense.
So PD.
5.
So he gets 5 dice to try and stop this. Only 5s and 6 stop it.
Oops. 2.
2. So he can stop one of my crits, or stop
Two.
basically one of my crits. Because I only have 1 normal and 3 crits.
Total, but that's
Total.
in addition to the 6 from earlier.
Yes.
6.
So you
I'll have
only
to
get-
stop the. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It'll
you have to
it'll
stop
leave
a
me. Okay,
Because
stop a
there's
crit.
only 1 normal one to stop.
Stop a crit, and then
And
armor.
you take 2 damage and make 1 armor save, also -1. Hey, it makes it down.
Okay.
So
8 total.
8 total
So
damage.
that leaves me
which
with
means
2.
So you're crippled.
2 left. And then my cripple roll. 5, which
Yes.
is super explosion. 1. Which is engines disabled. It suffer 2 additional hull points, which would destroy it.
So it just dies.
Well, do I still roll on the? But then
Yeah,
I
and
roll
you
on the
roll on the
catastrophic.
catastrophic damage. Again,
And-
Andy Chambers. You love charts. I get it. Good job, buddy.
And then it's +1 because he's 10
10 or more.
10 or more.
Yep, plus
So I need
1.
a 7.
7 would be bad for me.
Yes.
7 would
That's
be
why I
real
need a
bad for me.
7. I need a 6. No.
No,
I get a
4.
4, which is shredded. Ship is destroyed. Any ships within explosion range suffer 2 hull points from shockwave. Armor saves can be made.
Alright, so roll its explosion size. It's a straight D6 because he's holding
5.
God damn
So
it.
that's you.
That's me, so I
2
get
saves.
2 armor saves. This might cripple me, and we'll see even more rolls. No, I save them both.
Oh, God damn it.
Alright,
This game
Ifrit
sucks.
refuses to die.
This game sucks.
Adam now hates the game because he's losing.
Officially, yes. All right, on to the next.
On to the Hey everyone, so we've got the turn 3 recap here. So things are going the Scourge's way. My Shenlong finally got into the fight, still silent running, but because he has the stealth rule, he's able to fire 1 weapon and close action. So he blew up one of Adam's Toulons, which is pretty good. Over here, I'm continuing to dominate this sector. My Wyvern is just kind of hanging out in the breeze. I'm going to have to get him fighting. Unfortunately, my Ifrit was a peace trade. He killed the Seattle, but then died horribly to the, ironically enough, to the Berlin's burn through, which just savaged him. And Adam dropped off his first ground token over here, so now he's actually controlling a sector as well. So we'll see turn 4 is coming up, and this is a big turn. This is when we actually score points for the first time. So we'll see what happens. All right, everybody, here we have the bottom or the end of turn 4. So the first scoring turn, you can see kind of an overview. The Scourge have definitely probably taken this one. I think Adam's doing his usual. Let's just map out turn 5 and 6 in my head. But we'll see here.
Try to win.
So on the far side over here, sorry for the glare, we've got my strike carrier who actually popped up into low orbit to control this cluster as a critical cluster for 2 VPs. I control the sector, or I control 2 of the 3 sectors, which means I control that cluster the appropriate way, which means I just scored 5 VPs right there. My heavy cruiser just blew the hell out of the Berlin. He popped up out of silent run. He took some damage though, but popped up and blew the hell out of his Berlin. So I control this critical location, which is another 2. I control this large cluster, which is 4 VP. So I just scored 11 victory points this turn. Adam is going to score only 5 as he controls this one. His strike carrier did pop up into low orbit to score the critical location, and he does have 1 troop in it, which is still enough because no one else is there to control the medium cluster, so that's 3 VPs. So the game's going to end at a gentleman's agreement right now, 11-5, with a solid victory for the Scourge, fighting off the UNC.
Fighting off the dreaded UCM.
So far UCM. It's perspective, right? This is a war of invasion. I just want to point that out. It was a war of invasion. The Scourge have not attacked the UCM since totally invading and wiping them out, 150 years before that, but whatever, right?
Let it go.
Exactly, let it go. So, Adam, who was your MVP for the game? Who do you feel like really pulled weight? Nobody. All right. So UCM is winless so far in our games playing. So maybe just the battle box is not a good take. You know, I've got to give all love to the Shenlong. Even though he only popped up once, he still did a ton of damage.
He still one-shotted the full health.
Yeah, he did one shot. He did in one activation destroy the Berlin from completely healthy to 0.
Yeah.
So that's not bad. But overall, so this was kind of our intro game for you of Dropfleet Commander, the first 4 turns, more or less. We'll hopefully do a few more, show you the PHR versus the Shaltari, and maybe hopefully soon show you games beyond the battle box, maybe where we can build our own list. So maybe going carrier heavy versus close action heavy. There's a whole meta out there that we haven't really discovered that we're kind of getting into. Because we need the models, right? Well, I've got a lot of the models, but
one of us does.
Yeah, one of us does. But hopefully once Adam gets his, he'll have a pretty sizable PHR force, especially with the small stuff I have. So
that luxury liner is going to wreck face.
Exactly, and that luxury liner, man, come on. I've also got to build some space stations because there are space stations in this game.
Yeah.
So that might be fun to play one of the scenarios with them. So any last thoughts before signing off, Adam?
No, it plays really quick. But once the initial movement gets going, it does play a little quicker. And once things start dying off, it plays really quick. But it's a lot of what to do when to drop down, what levels to go, and there's a lot more to it. But it goes fairly quickly. We didn't take too long at all in our game.
All right.
It seems like it.
All right, Adam, any thoughts for the day?
You just asked me that.
I know. I said final thought for the day. Not final thoughts, but like the thought for the day, right? Like we do on the podcast.
Oh, my God.
Trying to be consistent, man, for our viewers.
No final thought for the day. Don't play UCM? I don't know.
Don't play. And that, dear friends, is our thought for the day. Don't play UCM. All right, this is Danny and Adam signing off, and hope to talk to you guys. Make sure to check out the Patreon. Make sure to like us on Facebook. Make sure to leave a text-based review on iTunes and all the stuff Travis usually says far more eloquently than I at the end of every podcast. So good night and good luck.